Hello. I'm going to be just reviewing some C++ from the beginning. A bit about me. I've been programming C++ for 5 years. And I am just waiting on I just finished a degree in software engineering, and I am waiting on a job. So what I am going to be doing is just about an hour each day, live streaming and reviewing what exactly I am doing. So, to start off, you have a very simple, so the compiler I'm using today is on a website. I'm going to comment it here so you can see it. It is called repo.it. And if you go to repo.it, I'll zoom in a little bit for you. You end up with this. It will ask you for a bunch of different things. What I'm using today is C++, but eventually what I'm going to add is Bash, because that will give us the ability to use a command line terminal similar to what you would find in Linux. Otherwise, let's get started. So, this is the most common beginning C++ program you will ever find. It is, and I will walk you through it line by line. There are only 5 lines. Include is saying I want to pull from a certain library. In this case, IOStream, which stands for input output, and it's going to grab all of the input output stream stuff and pop it in there. Int main is just how we call a main program in C++. For now, that's all we're going to worry about. And then here, we are calling the standard library. Cout stands for console out, and then we're just telling the console to say hello world. It is good practice or form to include a return statement at the end of your main function. The 2 that you can use are return 0. So when you hit play, the play button, it will say 0. Yay! Otherwise, the other one you can use is include C standard lib, and then change this to exit success. And it's going to functionally look identical here. You'll see in a second. But exit success has a couple of other features that are really interesting that I will talk about. Return 0 is regardless of operating system, and the big thing that return exit success is different is it's a C++ macro that will always return whatever the success value for a program is over return 0. Next up, so I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to talk about what this is. This is the standard namespace. So we can change this by calling, using namespace std or standard. Now there are 2 places you can put it. It is generally considered bad practice to put it here, because then it's global, is what it's called. Or you can put it inside your main function. It will serve the same purpose. Now, this here is a character inherited from C. It is called the new line or carriage return. The other way we can do it is with end L statement or end line. They serve different functions. For now, don't worry about what those functions are. But, boom, hello world. The last way to say hello world in C++ is with your what C++ inherits from C, which is the standard IO. I believe you will have to include standard IO.h, which is a C header. And it will do the same thing. Now you'll notice it doesn't go to a new line. That's because we didn't specify go to a new line. Boom. That is hello world. Next up, I just want to show some basic variable types and how we can manipulate them. So the first thing we're going to do is just calculate the area of a circle. To do this, I'm going to be using a variable type called a float. And I'm going to define pi as 3.14. I'm going to use float radius and define it as 2.0. And I'm going to float area equals pi times radius. Super easy. And then I'll just call our console out area and line. And it should be 12.56. If we want to make it say something a little more complicated, we could say the area of a circle with space with a radius of, and the reason we're going to do space here, I will demonstrate in a little bit. Radius.
Hello?
Hello? Hello, Alex. I just decided to stream some C++ on Twitch because I'm bored.
It's exciting.
That's fine.
You should watch YouTube.
What?
I've been sitting around watching YouTube.
That's cool.
Yeah. I'm gonna put some short videos on soon. Might play some Overwatch or something. I don't know. I did a little bit of Django today. A lot. I did like half of the tutorial and setup. I've gotten the Hello World part of it for, and now I've got to work on the second part.
Okay.
It's like a web server thing, but and their Hello World is super weird. Like you get the server set up and running, and that part's the Hello World, and then actually make the app. It's weird. Web servers are weird.
Yeah, they are.
That's alright.
Yeah, they are.
That's alright.
So just let me know when you want to Overwatch. My internet's going in and out right now, so I'm not sure. So just let me know when you want to Overwatch. My internet's going in and out right now, so I'm not sure. So just let me know when you want to Overwatch. My internet's going in and out right now, so I'm not sure. Okay. Next up on the docket, you will see it looks right. Now, what happens if we don't include that little space there? Now, I've done this a lot. So look, there's no, because C++ doesn't know that there needs to be a space there. So let's include a space. Mace. Mace. So now that we have done that, let's talk about different variable types. Your main number types are going to be int for integer. So let's say we have an int a, you have float, which is a floating point decimal value. We'll have a float that's b. We'll have a double that's c. A double is a longer decimal value. Double is 64-bit precision and floats are 32-bit precision. Don't need to worry too much about that. You also have unsigned ints, which you can sort into unsigned. Unsigned means that it cannot be negative because there is no sign in front of it. And let's say a equals 2, b equals 3.14, c equals 6.89234, something along those lines, and d equals, then we'll see out a, b, c, d, and line. Now let's see what that does. So, the next two types of variables we are going to talk about are chars and strings. So there are multiple ways to declare strings. For now, we're just going to add a header file. It is called string. This will let us declare a string. So char A and string B. Let's say we want A to equal C. We need those single quotations if it's a character, and B will be hello. When it's a string, you want the double quotations, and we'll see out. Let's make this a little more interesting. B A and line. And then, boom. That is how that works. For now, that's all you need to worry about when it comes to strings and stuff, but we'll talk a little bit more about that right now. Well, yes and no. We'll talk a little bit about it right now. We are going to run through the simplest one of the simplest programs you can find. One of the simplest types of programs you're going to run, and it is called FizzBuzz. Now, I am pulling up a website on another location. I am going to be doing some quick copying, and I will talk about what exactly FizzBuzz is and why we will want it. So the reason we're going to do FizzBuzz is, so FizzBuzz is a really simple children's game. On 3, on divisible by 3, you say buzz. On divisions of 5, you say fizz, and on divisions of both, you say fizz buzz. And I will show you how to modify it to make it look a little different in a little bit. But to start with, what we're going to do, since we have these strings, let's start by having our string fizz equal fizz and string buzz equal. There's no reason to do it this way, but we can. And then we are going to call a string, we're going to create a string print. What this is going to be is our print string, which will let us print what we're doing. So what we're going to do, let's say we want to do this 100 times. We're going to do what's called a for loop. I'm not going to get too much in detail here. I mean, I will. So we're going to do a for int I equals 0. So we're saying start at position 0. I is less than 100. Do this 100 times and do it 1 time each time we go through the loop. We need these brackets. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to clear whatever print was before. So we're going to call a plus equals. This is similar to append. So we're going to append just an empty string, which is just 2 quotation marks, no space, no anything. That's going to clear whatever it was before. Hi, Gray Jedi. How are you? The next thing we are going to do is we need to do a couple of if statements. So an if statement is checking if this is true, then we're going to do something. What we're going to do is we're going to check if I, so then this is going to be a unique and weird thing. We're going to call this %, which in programming says modulus. We're going to say mod 3. And what modulus means is the remainder of whatever is being divided by. And if I mod 3 is equal to 0, we're going to print, and we're going to call this append function up here again, plus equal fizz. The next thing we're going to do, if I mod 5 is equal to 0, we're going to do print plus equal buzz. So, running through what this loop does, from 1 to 100, we're going to clear whatever the previous result was. If I mod 3 is equal to 0, we're going to do print plus equal fizz, and then if I mod 5 is equal to 0, so if it's divisible by 3, fizz. If it's divisible by 5, buzz. Then we're going to make those two things together. Then we need one more statement. But before we talk about that statement, I will show you why. So we're going to do a cout print. So, as it's happening right now, what's going to happen is this really weird, jumbled, garbled mess. Now, there are a couple reasons that this is happening. But the big reason that it's happening, so the first thing, it's not clearing anything we're doing, which is a little weird and a little worrying, but we'll get into that. So instead, what we're going to want to do is we're going to do one last thing. We're going to structure this a little differently. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut this here, and I'm going to place it in here. Actually, I'm not going to cut it, I'm going to copy it. Well, there's no reason to copy it, really. Otherwise, what we're going to do is we're going to call an else. And so since we've done these two, all we need to say is, for anything that does not fit these two parameters, then we're going to call print equals to string I. This is a reason we're using the string header, so it's going to convert the number I to a string that we can print out, and then we're just going to print out that. Let's see if this works the way we think it should. If it doesn't, it looks like it's kind of working, but it's not. So this is a little weird. And we'll try it this way. This should clear this. That's even worse. Now this is a little odd. So the first reason it's not working is because we actually want it to equal 1 and be less than or equal, because we're going from 1 to 100, not 0 to 99. And I'm going to change this to a capital B for my own sanity so I can read it a little better. Now what's happening here is it's going 1, 2, 3, 4 buzz. It's reprinting whatever the previous number is. Which means that it is not calling that it is not calling this properly. That it is not calling this on any iteration that's +1 of what we have had before. Now there are a couple of ways that you could go about fixing this. I'm wondering whether just moving our print statement to the bottom will change this. And it is looking like it's not. Embarrassing. Actually, I know exactly why it's not working. This last else statement needs needs its own. So we're going to say else if I mod 3 is not equal to 0, and then we're going to use these two ampersands. This is saying and I mod 5, not 65, is not equal to 0. Then we're going to do this. And the reason and then we will check it again. It is still doing that really weird thing.
You store a lot of since I don't know what just didn't. Okay. Okay, I think I'm good.
So I am going to copy this over. This is a one that has an interactivity. I know that it works. I'm just curious as to why it isn't. So instead, X is going to be what 3 was. 5 is going to be what Y is going to be what 5 was, and then we're going to do that. So that works. It's functionally identical. So that is a very odd conundrum. Now I will be done for today. I have been programming all day. If anyone has any questions for me, go ahead and ask them. I'm actually not going to be done. So I'm going to keep going until 5:30. So what I want to do right now is figure out why that old one did not work, despite being functionally identical. Let's just do it this way and see whether my being using variables didn't work for some reason, and we are going to delete these variables. The reason we're deleting these variables is so that we're not allocating memory that we don't need. It doesn't matter with this program this small normally, but we want to be consistent. So that also is not quite what we want. And the reason for it is line 13. So remember how I said that was resetting it? That's not resetting it. What this is doing is it's adding an empty character. Instead, what we want to do is reset it with an equal sign. That's the assignment operator, whereas plus equals is the appending operator. And bam, we have it. So now let's say that instead of choosing 3 and 5, we wanted the user to choose what they were doing, like what numbers they were comparing to. So how I would go about this in a simple program like this is I would include an int y, int x, and then what we're going to int y, comma x. So the reason we don't need to redeclare another int here is because we're saying anything past this point is going to be of this type. And instead of y and x, I want to be more specific with naming variables unless I'm using it in a loop. It's a good practice to get into now, so I'm going to say first, second. And let's say, for example, we actually want to have size, loop size. And so what that's going to do is it's going to let us also define our loop size. We're going to change a couple of variables in our inside our little program momentarily, but first, so we've been doing couts for a while. Now we are going to learn how to get user input from the console. To do that, we call console in, which you can shorten to cin. Embarrassing, I taught myself C++. I used to say sin all the time, and coat was what I've said for cout, until I actually started watching YouTube videos on how to speak C++ language. So, you notice this operator here. This operator is the outstream operator. This is going to the console. To get things into the console, we need the instream operator, which is this. In, first, second, loop size. So what that's going to do is it's going to get the user's first number they want to compare to, the second number, and the loop size. So now we can say, instead of we're going to compare it to the loop size, and we're going to compare the first number to first, to second, and then we need to do the same here. First, second, and then, let's see, we want to do 7 and 28 and 100,000. You'll notice it's going really, really fast. That's because C++ is ridiculously fast, and it's actually iterating. I missed a 0, and we're going 1,000,000 times, not 100,000. But you'll notice C++ is ridiculously fast. Now there is, I'm going to, so what Control-C does is it just exited it. So that is how that program would work. Now I'm going to create a new REPL. I'm going to copy this program though. I'm going to create a new REPL in bash, and I'm going to just call it a tutorial bash. So it's going to create a new REPL. Oh man, that looks a little nicer. Probably. So instead of main, before we get started on main, what we need to do is add our main.cpp, and we're going to copy paste all of that, and we're also going to add a makefile. So what a makefile is it's doing what our play button was earlier, but we get to define the parameters of how we're doing it. So, make is using the Linux GNU compiler, the G++ version. So what we need to do, the first thing you need to do is specify a target. So I'm going to call this tutorial-series. That's going to be our name of the program, and we're going to tell it what to compile, which is main.cpp. Then what we need to do I just need to remember the order of this. You need to first specify, okay, I'm going to call the G++ compiler. I want to warn all. I want to call main.cpp. I want it to be an object. And I want to name the object tutorial-series. Then what we do here is clean. So clean is, let's say that something's gone really, really horribly wrong. What clean lets us do is clean whatever has been in the stream and restart. And so we are going to be using a Linux command here. What we're going to do is call rm, which is short for remove-f of type file, and we're going to remove the name of the program. Now we'll go back to our main.main.sh, and what we're going to do here is we are just going to call make. So before we do that, what I want to do is I just want to call a make. So missing separator, stop. What that tells me is that this doesn't like how it's doing tabs. So I'll try it like that. And I'll try make. Nope. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this in a notepad and format it really quick. And that's because this online editor is being a little weird with how it reads spaces. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. I'm going to create a make file and import it. So I'm going to delete this old make file because this is not working. And I'm going to import a new make file that I just created. That I am in the process of recreating. You need to be sure, and I'll actually pull this up. This is Notepad++. You need to be sure that when you save in Notepad++, you're making sure you choose no file extension. So I'll show you. I'm going to save. I'm going to call this make file. Now I don't want it to be a .txt, so you'll see .txt up here. I want to scroll up to the top, all types. Save. Make file already exists. Yes, I want to replace it. Okay. I want that gone. I want to save. I want to call it make file. And I want it of type nothing. Yes, I want to replace it. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to import this new make file. Now I'm going to try again, make. So now, look, it compiled. Now, what we can do is we can call // So // in Linux is saying I want to run something. And we're going to just call tutorial series. Press enter. We can do 3, 5, 100. Boom! It works. So clear is just a quick way to clear. Now what do we want to do here? What I like to do in the bash for REPL is just create 2 simple commands. I can add a third, which I probably will, which is tutorial-series. I believe is what I called it. Yes. So what this will do is it's going to clean whatever's been there, recompile it, and then run it. So I can go 3, 5, 100. And that is how you set up a quick make file. Are there any questions anyone has? Now, the next thing that I am thinking is I'm going to show you a website I like to use when I am just wanting to get some practice in. So this is called Caddis. This is one of many programming competition websites. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick a very easy problem, and I'll walk you through how I would solve this problem. So what I want to do, let's go with a 1.3 isithalloween.com. So they'll have this really funky scenario. You're really only going to care about a couple of things, but for this scenario, you're going to read, it's going to say, isithalloween.com. A website is a very simple one. People will visit, and if it's Halloween, you print out yup. Otherwise, you print out nope. Since it's a popular firm, they don't have time to complete it. So they're sending it to you. Your goal is only when it's Halloween, or you need to read very carefully here, December 25th, print out yup. Otherwise, print out nope. So how would we go about solving this problem? First thing I like to do is keep both of my things side by side, but since that's probably going to be really crappy here, I'm going to just leave that open. So how I would go about this is I would actually create a template function, which is a kind of cool thing to do. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to create a template function. And what a template function is it's anytime we want to call something, we can just say, okay, let's do this. Otherwise, so bool says it's going to return a Boolean value. A Boolean value can be one of two things, true or false. Now this template function is going to look a little different than our main function, and the reason for that is we are going to add parameters. The two parameters we're going to add is a string, which means we're going to have to move this using namespace. We're going to move this namespace to global, and we're going to name this string month. And we're going to call an int day. Now this is a template function. When you write a template function, there are two ways you can write it. You can write then you can write the definition of the function here, meaning you don't need this semicolon, or you can write it below your main function, in which case you do need that semicolon. I prefer this method. And then you use your curly brackets. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to I'm going to show you what a comment is. You want 2 slashes. I prefer a space. So now we're going to ask, what are the test cases we're looking for? The first case is it Halloween. The second case is it Christmas. The third case, everything else. So for the first case, what we're going to do is we're going to want to see is the month equal to oct, because the problem said we're getting the input as capital 3-letter months and day equal to 31. What we're going to do is return true. So we're saying, yep, if it's this, we're going to return, yep, And then we're going to do the same if month equals dec for December and day equals 25. Return true. Then what we can do is if we've gotten to this point, everything else, we can just return false. It's functionally the same as saying else return false. So we're saying once we've gotten to this point, if it's not this, let's return false. Next, we're going to go back to our main. Now that we know what our function does, what we want to do is define a couple of, we want our month, we want our day, then we want to get our month in first. That's how they want it, and then we're going to get in our day. And then it's going to look a little weird, but it'll work. If is Halloween, month, day, cout, yup. And I prefer to have these spaces because it looks cleaner. Else, cout, nope. So before I submit it to Caddis, and I will show you what that looks like, what I like to do is run through some test cases. So the first test case is, does it work on October 31st? Yay! Second test case, does it work on December 25th? Yay! Let's run a couple of random test cases. Let's say it's February 14th. Nope. So I know it works. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy all of this. I'm going to go back to our Caddis. I'm going to hit submit. You can drag and drop your main.cpp, or you can open up an editor, do that, hit submit. It'll be a little bit in churning, and I will zoom in so you can see what it looks like. It's just going to run through a series of potential answers. It's going to test it against a bunch of different things, and if it's correct, you'll get these nice little check marks saying you got it right. And boom, that means it's right. So you'll notice CPU time is 0.0 in later Caddis problems, which I will go through later on in the stream, later on into the streaming process. That will become very important. But for now, don't worry about it too much. The problems we're going to be doing early on aren't really that important. So that is everything for today. We went through input-output, template functions, strings, for loops, if statements, and variable data. If you have any questions for me, I will be also posting this video on a YouTube's, as well as leaving links to some socials. You are free to reach out to me, ask any questions. Tomorrow, I plan on doing something a lot more, going on the opposite end of the spectrum and doing something extremely advanced. Every other day, I'm going to do a review, then advanced, then review, and advanced. Thank you all. Bye.